things that are very detrimental to that very profession. It happens. It happened in baseball. It happened in football. It happened, in all businesses. Wrestling, of course, has been our life. God, we've both been in it now for over 30 years, and Herb here's been promoting for the past year or so, but he's also been a promoter in so many other different businesses, showbiz and what have you. So I think he understands the whole situation. That what's happened to professional wrestling, it hurts me because I love this game. I was in it for so many years. I wrestled all over the world, as you know, Captain. And all of a sudden, in recent times, there's certain things that have really turned me off because wrestling has taken a turn for the worse as far as I'm concerned. There always has been some showmanship in professional wrestling, but in recent years, one of the organizations has really come on with a new concept that, in my opinion, has taken the sport of wrestling out, and it's been strictly almost a cartoon show for kids. I never liked that. That hurt me because, again, I say the love I have for the game. But as you guys know, recently out of Harrisburg, we've been following the papers, television, radio about this trial concerning this doctor who has been supplying for many, many years steroids and some other drugs to some very well-known wrestlers, not only to the wrestlers themselves, but even to the promoter of that particular league that we're talking about. And of course, I know for myself, and I'm sure, Lou, you run into the same situation, people are somewhat shocked and disappointed and disillusioned because so many kids do watch wrestling and
look to the people as role models.
Exactly, exactly. And then when you hear all these negative things, a lot of people are in an uproar. And frankly, for me, number one, it bothers me tremendously that this has happened to our business. But number two, in a way, I'm glad it has been discovered. It has been brought before the public because now these people are going to have to either shape up or get shipped out because we don't need this kind of nonsense, these evil things in our business, and so I'm hoping that with everything that's come out of this case, out of Harrisburg, I'm hoping that now proper steps will be taken, not by the league itself, which I question that because they claim that they're going to self-clean. I'm not sure that I feel too confident about that, but perhaps through outside influence.
From an independent
yes, I believe that perhaps Herb...
Bruno, let me ask you this. When you were wrestling for as many years as you have, what was the situation with steroids at that time?
When I first turned pro in 1959, I can honestly say I'd been competing in both Olympic lifting and powerlifting, and I was wrestling amateur. I had never even heard that word, steroids. Around 1964 or so, I had been world champion already for about a year or two at the time when I first heard the word steroid. And I asked a friend of mine who owned a gym in New York what they were, and he first introduced me to what steroids mean. They told me it's a hormone that people are injecting themselves or taking it orally, and what it does is makes the muscle grow a lot quicker, makes you stronger quicker. But they also said that there were so many things that they did not know about the side effects of these things. And of course, as the years have gone by, we have learned more and more that very, very dangerous these drugs are. People have died from it. People have become, there are people who are waiting, in even other sports. I'm talking about football, waiting for a heart transplant. Yes. Somebody's needing kidney transplants. I mean, and the trouble is that in wrestling, like I said, for myself, I had never heard of anybody on steroids in the late 50s or the 60s. In the 70s, I started hearing a name here and there in steroids in professional wrestling. But by the middle 70s, I would say, I remember that we used to do TVs out of this town, Allentown in Hamburg, whatever, and for this other league, this other organization. And it was very obvious that how many of the guys were more and more getting into it as they were getting their supplies from this doctor.
When you say it's obvious, you mean the muscular, chiseled body build? Is that...
Well, Herb, like I said, I've been in weightlifting for years, both Olympic lifting and powerlifting, and I know what it takes and how long it takes for your body to transform itself, especially if you were a heavy person, with
cutting down.
Yeah, or if you were very thin. It takes a lot of hard work, years of training, proper dieting, and so forth. And when you see someone that looks okay today and looks great 6 months or a year,
it's not an overnight.
Not normal.
Bruno, what you're trying to say, it's not an overnight process. But one other thing I wish you would point out to people out there watching and all our sporting fans and so forth, that it's not necessary. If you have a good frame, if you got a good mind, if you train hard and you eat well, look at you, Bruno, in 1959, bench pressing, in those days, unheard of, 565 pounds, and doing 38 consecutive reps with 330, and I know that I was with you. You never took steroids. You've always been a clean athlete. Well, ladies and gentlemen, let's get back to our famous guest, the legendary Bruno Sammartino.
The tragedy is that the youth today, the youth of America today, because they hear so much about these steroids and whatever, they don't believe that you could achieve this through natural training and hard training. They think that you have to. I have had people who have read books. There was a book out of York that told about many lifters' feats, and they talked about mine. And I had some young wrestlers come to me and say to me, come on, Bruno, you did 565 with a 2-second pause and 715-pound squats and that. I said, yeah. They said, you had to be on something. That's the tragedy, because they don't believe that you could achieve those kind of lifts unless you're on steroids. And I keep telling, you know, schools that I've gone to and different people that I speak to, young groups and so forth, I try to tell them, that's a lie. You can absolutely achieve, if you're willing to work hard, dedicate yourself, you can, there's no limit as to how far you can go. Listen, without bragging here, when I did 565 in the bench, I can tell you that most of these steroid users aren't doing 565. So what I'm saying is that it
can be done
It can be done naturally. All it takes is that, well, in my case, you have to have, of course, the proper frame, you know, to dictate as to how far you can go. There are certain things that your physical makeup that one has to have naturally. I mean, I may have been real skinny, but I had big bones and so forth and so on. And this is all important in how far you can go. But the most important thing is, even if you can achieve, by taking steroids, you can become Mr. America, you can become a world champion wrestler. What good is it if 10, 15 years down the road they can either kill you or you can become an invalid as a result of it?
Don't look for the quick solution. That's
absolutely.
Well, unfortunately, as we know, a good friend of ours, Lou Albano, who is in the football, industry, he has openly admitted that he's been on steroids and he's got a very serious problem because of it. I think we want to get the message across to the young people out there that look up to these people that are on steroids and think twice before they get involved in something like that.
Well, you know, Lou Albano is doing that, and I take my hat off to him because he's helping a lot of young kids.
Yes, he is.
But a former wrestler, we have to mention, too, that is doing a great job right now, and that's Billy Graham, superstar Billy Graham. Because Billy Graham has come out and said, I have a lot of problems. Look at me. I've had surgery after surgery. I have some liver problems. I have all these problems. And it's all from steroids. And he's telling everybody, if you're on it, get off of it. And if you're not on it, for God's sake, don't go.
Okay, Bruno, fine. Can I interrupt you for 1 minute? Then how about the role models out there that have openly been reputed to be taking the steroids? Why shouldn't they come out to the youth of America and say, yes, I've taken steroids. I was wrong. I've done wrong, but it's the wrong thing to do because the after effects are worse. Own up to what you've done. Don't deny it on openly TV throughout the world.
Because the so-called superstar today, we all know what we're talking about, is a hypocrite. A hypocrite because to go before national television and to suggest that he only used the steroid because there was an injury and instead of cutting the... I mean, I could have vomited when I heard this. So from, was it the Arsenio Hall show?
On the show, and bringing up other people
because
that use steroids.
The facts are that the court clearly showed that the good doctor was going to go to jail for maybe 44 years and $3.5 million fines. The reason why he's been found guilty because he supplied that individual and many others with these deadly steroids for many, many years. And to come on national television and deny it all, that to me is a crime. That is absolutely.
And what makes a real man is if someone had a problem. Take myself, Bruno. I overdrank. I'm not saying I didn't. I'm openly coming out and saying that. But now I've realized that it's wrong. You can kill with drinking. I tell children, don't go in, drink and drive. You try to set an example. If you've done wrong, get help. Don't go out and deny what you've done. Accept what you've done. Tell people what you've done. Try to set an example. Try to make it a better country, a better world to live in. Don't get out and deny it because that's where you're wrong. That's what happened to Gary Hart. Denied he was with a woman, he was this and that, I didn't do it, come and follow me. They found him, and that lost the guy, probably that cost the guy the presidency. Admit what you do openly. Richard Nixon, I don't believe he was a bad president, but he denied what he did, and the American public hates that. Go out and help.
Herb, let me ask Herb a question here. Now, Herb, you know, you've been promoting wrestling. I know you've been promoting other things, but it's first professional wrestling about a year, right?
That's correct.
Okay. Now, as a relatively new promoter, okay, now you've been hearing all that has been going on in professional wrestling, these late these scandals that we had recently. As a promoter, and I know because that's why we're here, because of the concept that you want to bring back.
That's correct.
How do you feel about it, and what would you do, or what steps can you take not to let such a scandal happen to the UWF?
Well, first of all, as you know, we have wrestlers from all parts of the world, and we openly have wrestlers that we are interested in that are competitive, and that is what the UWF strives for, is competitiveness. Unfortunately, there are probably some wrestlers, we do not at this point check for steroid use, but I will tell you this, I'm really not that familiar with steroids just until recently, and now that I have seen and heard some of these things, and I will also add that I happened to meet Billy Graham at his home, and I saw exactly with my own eyes what steroids has done to his leg and to his foot. And I will tell you that if there is anyone involved with taking steroids in our organization, we certainly don't want to welcome them, because we don't want to set an example for the children who are going to, of today, that are the people that are going to run this country years later. We certainly don't want to do that. That's really what the crust of what we're trying to bring out here at this point.
In other words, Herb, what you're trying to say, that Universal Wrestling is trying to bring wrestling back to the good old days of wrestling.
And not just about steroids. Let's take steroids away from it. Let's just talk about actually wrestling. We know that our champion, Steve Dr. Death Williams, who recently won the title, there's no question in my mind, I have publicly made it very clear, that Steve Dr. Death Williams, who is one of the finest, in my opinion, the strongest and toughest professional wrestler today, can defeat any professional wrestler in the sport today, Bruno. And well, I think you might agree with that.
I absolutely agree with you, because, I look at the men's background, and when you look at Williams' background, this guy is not only a great professional, but he was a great amateur. Here's a guy out of Oklahoma who just got nosed out by Bruce Baumgartner, who went on to win in the Olympic Games. And, when you get nosed out like that, that means that you could have 3, 4 different workouts, and it could go either way at any time. You know what I'm saying? So that's the caliber of a wrestler that Williams was as an amateur, and then, of course, as a pro. Look at right now. He's since he won the Sports Channel America champion, he's already defending it. He's big in Japan. They won him.
Major star in Japan.
Yeah, he's a major star in Japan and other parts of the world, and that's the kind of champion that I think it makes a great representative of the sport of professional wrestling.
Bruno, can I interrupt you and ask you another question? When you say today the monkeys and the snakes and the parakeets, we know the organization we're talking about that is overly done, is overly exposed wrestling and made it into a complete comedy and I would call it a farce. Are you saying that in the old days, I'm in the business, so I'm probably saying what you're saying, that wrestling then, there was no showmanship, there was no sporting in the older days?
No, there was always showmanship. In fact, there were times when I saw some kind of form of showmanship that I honestly did not approve of.
Right.
But when I look back today, from what is to what was, really no comparison. For example, let's look at the old times, Gorgeous George. Gorgeous George, showmanship, right. You had these fancy robes, but the difference was that Gorgeous George was a tremendous wrestler.
Right.
Buddy Rogers. Buddy Rogers and I, the whole world knows, we certainly were never friends. This guy and I, we fought each other. We did not like each other. Buddy Rogers was the nature boy, the blonde hair. He did it. But Buddy Rogers was a wrestler.
Right.
So the point is that, yes, you had the showmanship, you had the fancy robes, you had the bleached blonde hair. But behind all that, you had a tremendous wrestler.
Sure.
I see people today, certain people today, who are all gimmick, all show, but no wrestling.
You know what gets me, Bruno? When they come out today, they say, well, today the boys, they're enhanced with this, these steroids, they're bigger than it. Do they forget about the Dr. Bill Millers weighing 300 pounds, standing 6'10"? They forget about Killer Kowalski, a man that magnificently looked at 290 pounds. Don Leo Jonathan, Jess Ortega, Bobo Brazil, a black athlete that stood 6'8" or 6'9", Bill Watts. What about those giants? What about the Argentina Rockers? Not in size-wise, but in acrobatic ability. What about the Bruno Sammartinos, the Vern Gagnes, the Luthez, the Great, the Buddy Rogers? We had so many greats. People seem to forget that. The young kids of today look out there and say, oh, this guy's doing this, this guy.
Captain, the young kids, because they don't know. But you talk to the wrestling fans who are adults, and when you talk about wrestling, who do they mention? They mention these very names because they say those guys were wrestlers. Now today, and that's a shame, because you have people like Williams, as Herb just said, it's a shame because so many people are so turned off because of some other organization, what they've done, that it's unfair to people like Williams, because sometimes they tend to put the whole wrestling of
As
today
one
as
combined thing.
one.
Right.
And that's why, Herb, like with yourself now, you have to be patient and you have to realize that it takes time through television exposure and what have you, and through the people that come to the arena, that they talk and they spread the word as to what is and what's going on. And it will take time, but it can be done and it will be done because people who were real fans, they will come back when they see the kind of wrestling that they used to love.
Well, you know, Herb, not because you're my co-host in this corner, but I've got to say, working for you with Universal Wrestling as an interviewer of professional wrestlers, and I watch the caliber of wrestler you're bringing into the Universal Wrestling Federation, and I've got to say, I think you're doing a wonderful job. Perhaps it's going to take a little while, like Bruno says, for the people to realize again that we have the best. But you're doing a great job, and we're very proud of you.
Ladies and gentlemen, we thank you for this little segment that we've had today, and I want to say we'll see you next week.